Hi everyone, and welcome to another webinar session by Grad New Zealand. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Emily. I'm one of the webinar hosts, and we do these weekly webinar sessions to give students insights into different industries, give them career advice, or anything that can really help them score their dream graduate job. So for those of you who don't know what Grad New Zealand is, it's a graduate career site where you can explore and get to know graduate employers. You get a backstage pass to see what it's like working in a role with them. And you can also apply for programs that suit you. When you sign up and create an account, you actually get notified of open applications and opportunities to apply for, as well as, you get a list of like weekly jobs that you should be applying for. So it's really awesome. And we also do a bunch of things like this. So we do these webinars where you can learn from people in the industry. So for this session's webinar, it's a guide to a career in engineering, different career pathways, acing your interviews, career progression, advice when starting a graduate job, and more. And we actually have one guest here. So we have Scott Payne, who is the Contract Paving Department Manager at Fulton Hogan. So I'll just hand it over to Scott so he can give himself a quick little introduction. Scott, if you could share how you got to where you are, what you do, and yeah, that'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so Scott Payne, based down here in Dunedin. So work for Fulton Hogan, which is obviously a large contracting firm in New Zealand and Australia, and a little bit of work done in Fiji as well. So reasonably big company. I started straight out of it wasn't quite a graduate at that stage because it wasn't sort of the in thing. It was just a new person to the business. So started, I think I was 20, straight out of Otago Polytech actually, and just started off as a little bit of holiday work, and got to know the feel of the place, and probably vice versa, then get to know me. And then all of a sudden that turned into a full-time job, and now 18 years later, I'm still here working and loving it. So yeah, bit of a beginning there for you, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So to kind of introduce you guys to how this session is going to run. So we have a bunch of guided questions that will follow. But if you have any questions or that you want to ask Scott, this is absolutely the time to do so. So definitely pop your questions in the comments and we'll get around to them. We always try and answer as many questions as possible. So make sure if you have any questions to ask them today. So we'll start off with some of our pre-prepared questions. So we're starting a bit general. We're just going to talk about what are the different kinds of engineering pathways. So Scott, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah, cool. Obviously, I'm a contractor, so that's one pathways. But there's sort of three main ones. One, you've got the client, and they could be a city council or NZTA. So they're the ones that own and maintain the assets. So they employ engineers to help in that area. So traditionally you'll be a road maintenance contracts or the Three Waters area, and you'll engage a consultant who will then engage a contractor, and it sort of works in that way. And then the other one is a consulting engineer, which is what they call the engineer to the contract traditionally in the 3910. So there's a lot of design work goes on with the consultant. So they'll be working out the loadings on bridges and the different pavement types you need, the size of the pipes that'll need to go into the ground. So a lot of upfront design using all the good skills that we've been trained in the last couple of years to apply to that. And then the third one's a contractor, which I am. So you kind of get the plans and the design, and then you go out and build it basically. So there's the three. And if I just said on contracting, it can go sort of splits out even more as you can become an engineer. And then as you sort of grow, you become a project manager, and then the projects go from small scale work up to major highway redevelopments. So there's sort of that path in contracting. And then there's also the technical side. So you do a lot of material testing and new material design, a lot of sustainability stuff. And then another one is you can go off into the management chain and work on the business side of it as well. So yeah, it's probably good little intro into the different types of areas you can go in once you finish study.
Was there anything in particular that led you to pursue contracting?
Yeah, well, I've always have. Put it out there, I used to be a skateboarder, so I was always building stuff, physically building ramps and bits and pieces. So probably at school, I wanted to be an architect. So went along to the open day for architecture down here in Otago and had a bit of time to fill in. So I went to the civil engineering one just to fill a gap, really. And ever since then, it's just like it's sort of done the bit of the both worlds. You got to do a bit of design, bit of construction as well, and just had that feeling that you're going to be able to see a job from start and see it all the way through the finish, which really appeals back then and still now. There's nothing better than getting a set of plans and going out to a site and then seeing the completed product. It's quite rewarding.
Awesome. So that kind of leads into my other question. So you've clearly managed to figure out what's your correct, what's the career path for you. Do you have any advice on how, others like students in engineering, how they can figure out what's the right path for their engineering career?
Yeah, I think so. Contractors are typically kind of enjoy the outdoors. They sort of the guys that, suppose you put your boots on and go out to site a fair bit. So you've got to have a bit of good sort of practical knowledge, know how things go together and how it's going to work. The design is a real detail orientated, so it needs to get you need to get all your calculations correct and make sure everything's working from a theory point of view before you hand it over to the contractor. So if that's what really gets you excited is the maths and doing all those sorts of stuff, that's would be good for the consulting side of it. And clients is a bit of a mix of both. There's no real, a lot of the client stuff, they'll be looking at budgets going forward into the, not just this year, but how that's all rolling up and what sites they can prioritise into which areas. So, but at the end of the day is, don't let that panic you, because people just move around. Like there's a lot of people go from contracting to consultants to client. There's a bit of people move around a fair bit. So, if you dip your toes in one area and all of a sudden you're thinking it's not for you, it'll still be a good experience and add to your CV. And people change. So you don't need to make a lifetime decision at a young age. You probably just need to go out and have a go at what sort of excites you at that time.
So you said that people move around a bunch. So can we talk a little bit about that? So for someone who potentially graduate who goes into one area, they go into client side, then they decide they want to go into consulting. Is the process for that quite straightforward, or is there like any tips and tricks that you know of on how people can swap around to get into different things that interest them?
Yeah, I suppose if you're we've got two examples of, we've just had a young engineer who was a project manager for us, and he's just gone to Dunedin City Council as a project manager for them. So he's gone from contractor to client. And then on the flip side, about a month later, a client come over to work for us as a project manager. So what tips I'd give there is, just wherever you go, if you be genuine and put hard work in, that's going to get you a bit of a good name out there and a bit of respect. And a lot of the senior managers and contractors and clients, they talk about bits and pieces. So if someone's swapping over and you've performed in your role, that'll get through, and it'll give you more of a chance when you want to shift over to any other areas.
Awesome. So we've talked about how there's, contracting, consulting, client side. The other thing that would be good to talk about is private and public sector. So are there any, sorry?
I did see that question there. Yeah. So, didn't have a whole lot. The public sector could get a lot more scrutiny. Yeah. So that, there's probably a little bit more scrutiny in the public area. You're accountable because the people that live out there effectively kind of pay your wages, I suppose, through their rates that they pay to the council. And if you're working for a council, that's sort of the way it works. And so yeah, probably just a bit of scrutiny there. And with contracting, is you do get a little bit of scrutiny, but not to the same extent. And I think a private company, you've got a little bit more ability to get some new gear and try a few new different things. I would say just a little bit, maybe a bit more of a risk taking, I suppose. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense. What about career progression? So, we talked, I think you touched on it briefly, but what kind of career progression can a graduate going into this industry expect for
Cool.
example, Hogan, different areas as well?
Yeah, so I'll talk to it from Fulton Hogan's point of view of how we work with graduates. So there's a graduate sort of rotation taken in each year, and we've got I should know, we've got bases in just about every major town or city in New Zealand, and each year they take on an intake. So down here in Dunedin, we take 4. In Invercargill, there's 3, and our neighbours in Central are 2, and it just gets bigger when you get to the likes of the Christchurches and the Auckland. So they start on a graduate program, and it's a 12-month rotation where you'll start and you actually be out in the field working in the different areas so it could be in the laboratory doing some testing of the materials, and the sealing gangs and the roading gangs, the drainage 3 waters sort of crew. So you get a good rounding of everything that's needed to be done in civil engineering. And yeah, it gives you a good base so that when you are running your projects in a year or two's time, you still know everybody in those areas because you've worked with them before. You've got a bit of a knowledge of how things work. And then also it gives you a chance to say, hey, I really like that area. I might specialise in that. In the drainage or 3 waters, for example, you could really float your boat. So you're not stuck in it, but then you can really like it and stay in that area after your rotation. And then, so that's sort of the first 12 months. We've got, from there, you'll end up being like a site engineer. So you're sort of based out on site a lot of the time, really in the day-to-day operations of the job. And there's normally a project manager, a little bit more senior, giving you a bit of mentoring and running the job as a whole. And then at a certain time in your career, you'll have this one job which just makes you. I don't know what it is or how it works, but you get these young guys coming through and they do this job, and you just go, oh, he's ready to go to the next stage, which is traditionally a project manager of a whole job. And so then that could be 2 or 3 years down the track. And then from there, if you want to stay in the project management area, it's just you keep skyrocketing. The size and complexity of your jobs, they just keep increasing and getting bigger and bigger. And your team underneath your engineers goes from 1 engineer to all of a sudden you could have half a dozen engineers working for you out on the different areas of a project. And the other one, which is the line I went through, I did a few years doing project management, but then I went into the sort of the business side of it, where you're actually managing some departments. So you own you don't own your staff, but you own your vehicles, and you've got staff that work for you, and they go out and deliver projects or portions of projects to these project managers. So, and then, once you work your way up into management, there's, depending on how high and how good you are, the sky, you can get right up to the top if you want. And then the other area is our engineering solutions team, which they're not related to a project or a team, but they just provide a lot of guidance to those teams around different quality controls or different materials they've been testing. So, yeah, sort of 3 main prongs, I think, would be the way to go. Good enough summary there, Emily?
Yeah, that sounded really good. Super detailed, which is awesome. I think so that made a lot of sense. I think one thing you sort of touched on as well was the graduate program. So maybe we can go into that a little bit. And I'd love to ask, what can graduates expect from the Fulton Hogan graduate program? What kind of benefits are there for them? What can they learn? You mentioned mentors as well. What kind of, who can they meet? Who can give them mentoring advice? Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, no, excellent. So, like I say, so it's the first 12 months of your career, and you're allocated a mentor. So it's not your direct manager. It's normally someone that you can have a wee bit of a yarn to about things that's not directly in your chain of command, I suppose. So it's just real good. It gives you someone to talk to that you know is not, they're a little bit removed from the issues you may be having, and they can give a fresh perspective. They sort of help you through any sort of tough times, and just that person to have a talk to, it sort of catch up. There is a bit of a set. It should be once a month, but I've mentored a few people, and it can vary. It could be every 2 months, or it could be every 2 weeks, just depending on how things are tracking. The graduates, they're obviously spread all through the country, but every, I think it's 3 or could be 4 months, they all come together in a central location, and they get a lot of the senior managers will give them the feel of the lay of the land at Fulton Hogan, and get them all together for anything more than it's normally 1-2 days. It just gives them a chance to socialise and meet each other and just share their experiences. There's not just for the graduates, I suppose, but the other benefits is our Fulton Hogan benefits you get when you work for Fulton Hogan. I suppose I'm starting to try and sell Fulton Hogan here, but you get your medicals and supers and all that sort of stuff starts from day one. So good package there for obviously your salary, but then also you get those extras as well.
Awesome. One thing you touched on was, mentoring and how you get to surround yourself with other people. Do you have any tips for graduates, not necessarily in Fulton Hogan, but just in general in the engineering industry, on how they can make the most out of their relationships with their mentors, how they can form strong relationships and begin networking in their career?
Yeah. So I suppose there's 2 prongs to that I'll talk about. So the first one's mentoring is, I'm a fan of shorter more often, if that makes sense. So you want a 20-minute conversation once a week, as I feel, is a lot better just to keep pulse on things than once a month where you sit down for a couple of hours and just go through it blow by blow. I think the more you can talk to your mentor, just short term, sort of small, the better. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. So if things aren't working, there's no point in pretending that you know exactly what's going on, because there's a lot to learn at that stage. So just be vulnerable. Ask for questions, ask for help, and that's the best way to learn, I feel. The other side of it is that's sort of the official mentoring. But what I noticed when I started at work, there's a lot of good people around that you can grab bits of information. They're very good at excavation, for example, but someone else might be very good at the financial claim side of a contract. So there's always lots of good people in organisations, and it's just a matter of getting a bit of a relationship with these people and just getting little pockets from different people. You don't need to just rely on whoever's, say, your direct manager to get that information. It's a company's a company, so it's just trying to get a relationship with everybody, really.
Yeah, that's great. I think one time someone told me that some of the most valuable conversation parts you can take are just from those like water cooler chats where someone just mentions something offhandedly, and then you're like, wow, that's a life-changing piece of advice, or something I didn't know that now I know. So yeah, just those little chats, or introducing yourself to people, just opening yourself up to have conversations is a really great way to stand out and start networking. So on the topic of standing out, do you have any tips and advice on how graduates can stand out in a new position?
How they stand out in a new position, I suppose it's just, being respectful and not being afraid to ask silly questions. If you just sort of sit in the background and don't ask a question you're not sure about, you'll only sort of ever be sort of sitting in the background. So if you're not afraid just to say, hey, look, what are you talking about here? You'll learn, and people go, oh, that's so-and-so there, and he's getting involved in the conversation. The hard one is another one. It's always good to say, look, have a bit of confidence about yourself, but not everybody is confident. So that's confidence is a good sign, I feel. They sort of people stick out. But and knowing your information, like if you're going to whether it's a project meeting or whatnot, it's always good to go through any documentation first. You're actually going in there prepared. you've read what's going on, you're asking some better questions because you actually know what's going on, not just turning up because that's the time you're supposed to be there and sitting through it. So yeah, being confident, getting involved in things, asking questions. It's probably my main advice. But just going back to that mentoring one, is on those 12-month rotation where you go around different crews, it's probably worthwhile saying that as a graduate, it's you've trained to do a certain job, but it's a good time to get stuck in and get your hands dirty with the guys that are out there doing the job. One, you get respect, but two, when in a year's time when you're running a project and you've got good respect from the crews you've worked in, they're more than willing to give you a hand because they understand that, if you're new to the job, you'll need a bit of a hand. So if you've got that relationship and that respect with normally those older foreman type guys, they're pretty valuable if you want your job to go well, if they're working well with you and helping you out. So yeah, that's probably a real key one for young guys coming in, is just get in, and I say guys, but girls as well, just get in there and get involved at the start, which will help down the track.
That sounds like a very valuable piece of advice. I think on that topic, so we talked just about standing out. Is there anything you would say on making the most of their graduate position? How can they fully maximize it and really have the best time with their graduate position, get the most out of it, learn the most from it?
Yep. So again, learning, you got to learn by various ways, but a big one is most of the time it's all based around a contract normally. So your client will want some work done, the consultant will put a contract out for it, and then the contractor will build it. So just knowing exactly what's in those contracts is very key as well. So if you turn up in the early days and you know exactly what's within the contract, people are going to go, oh, this person knows what they're up to. Because a lot of the time the guys might get a bit complacent and just go and build a road and not fully understand what they're doing. So if you've got the detail in there and ability to say, oh, hey, look, we've got to do it this way, or these are the test results we need. It's always good when somebody knows exactly what's going on. And to me, those guys always stand out.
Awesome. So I think we'll talk a bit about the application recruitment process and how they can stand out during that. So do you have any tips on how to stand out in an interview?
Yeah. So first one's eye contact. I reckon it's you've got to, when you're having a conversation with somebody, you want to be looking them in the eye. And a lot of time you can gauge, or when I'm interviewing someone and they look you in the eye and you just get a gut feel straight away. But if someone's a little bit sort of not looking at you or a little bit sheepish, it's just sort of doesn't tick the boxes for me. Having a driver's license sounds a bit funny, but it's pretty key in most areas, is to be able to have a driver's license. So many times people have applied for jobs and you've got a driver's license, and oh no, how are you going to get to work? So those sorts of things come up. So it's not something to stand out, but I think it's always key is to try and have a driver's license when you're going for an interview. Show that you're willing to try anything. You're not too worried about what area of a company you might go into, because it's sort of the old saying is once you get your foot in the door, you'll be able to adjust to those different areas you like. So if you come in and show that you're keen and willing and, oh, it doesn't worry me where I go, I just want a job at this company, that's going to stand out for me. Another good one I look for is like, what have you done in your holidays during high school or when you're studying? If somebody said, oh, look, I packed shelves at New World, I worked here in the holidays, that's always a big tick for me, because it means you're a bit of a go-getter and they're not just sitting around doing nothing. They've sort of been in a bit of a workforce and earned a bit of money when they were a bit younger. So does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question. I think the other thing we could talk about on that would also be how they can prepare for the interview. So, one of the things is, make sure you research the company and understand what they what they do, all that. But is there anything else that you think is beneficial for them to prepare for an interview? For example, like, should they have certain experiences in mind that they can reference if you ask a question of, give us an example when you've done XYZ?
Yeah. Oh, yes, good point. So yeah, the first one about researching the company, that does actually make a big difference. Like most companies will have a set of values that they work to. And if I've had people come in and tell us their company values, and it's very impressive. And some people, you just ask them, what do you know about Fulton Hogan? And they don't really know a hell of a lot. So if you've done a bit of research, it's a good point, Emily. It's a key one. So what was your second question there? Sorry. Oh, the
Is there any other things?
Yeah,
preparation.
Yeah. So yeah, and that can be a lot of that. If you haven't had that experience in the workforce, it can be a lot of the stuff you do in study. Is you can show you've done projects, you've project time management, all those stuff in study can come over into the workplace. It's all sort of a similar thing. So you could just give a good experience about when you were a little bit under the pump and how you sort of managed your time and got that assignment in, but also got some study in and did some sports as well, how you balanced everything up is be a good example. And yeah, anything that you've built in the past, obviously civil engineering is sort of building infrastructure, isn't it? So if you've built something in the past, it's always handy, or designed something in the past. Any sort of community groups that you're involved with, there's something about volunteering. I reckon it gives everyone a bit of a good feeling, I reckon. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are all really good. Like just making sure when you're going to an interview, have a Google at what are the, most commonly asked questions for your industry. Just prepare some kind of example in your mind. I think like when I was interviewing, fresh out of, I think, university, there'd always be the question of what's like a tough situation you've had to overcome, or how have you dealt with high pressure situations in the work environment. So making sure that you have a bunch of different experiences that you can reference to show off, how you persevered or how you handled yourself is really important. And it also means that you're not going to be stuttering, trying to figure out what to say. So you're going to have something in the back of your mind, which is going to make it so much easier. So I think that's really important. And also, like what you said, Scott, like researching the company, actually knowing what they're doing is very impressive, and understanding their values. So yeah, a bunch of really great tips there. The other thing I wanted to chat about is, so for someone who's watching right now and they haven't actually done really anything that we've said, so they haven't joined community groups, they haven't worked in a job or anything like that, do you have any immediate tips on what they should be doing to, really start changing their changing and improving their experience on their CV now?
Yeah, I suppose thinking of the end goal, I want to be employed at this company here, and then some of the stuff you do, I'm not sure if they're getting employed next year or it's a few years down the track, but what are you doing today, or what could you do in the next couple of months that actually is something that you can put on your CV for that end goal? So getting involved in not sure what it could be, but there's lots of events that go on. So just think about everything that's on offer and how could that help you with your end goal. The other one would be just go up to a civil engineering company and say, look, can I come in for a day trip and follow one of your engineers around for the day? That's what I did when I was younger, and it showed you a little bit about how the place works and gets your face in there as well. So going along to those sorts of companies. The other one too, when you're giving your CV away, this day and age, they're all online and then submitted. So a lot of the times you have to do that, but there's still nothing beats turning up to the workplace and saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. Who can I talk to? And a lot of the times it's, give me your CV. I'll put it to the right places, but sometimes they can get lost in the busyness of the workforce. So, if you can turn up to a place and ask to speak to one of the managers or one of the engineers, that always shows that you're keen and you're getting your face out there as well. So, pretty good tip there. If someone's knocking on my doorstep, I'm going to take notice versus another email in the 300 I got that day that, if I'm under pressure from other areas, I'm probably going to ignore that. So, but if you turn up on my doorstep, there's a conversation that's going to be had right there and then. So, yeah.
I think that is a great suggestion. And just like that, even if you don't want to, if you can't turn up, even just introducing yourself over, potentially like LinkedIn or just making yourself known is a really great way to stand out in advance, even far before you're applying for like a graduate role. So I love that tip, Scott.
And just sort of cut in there, but sooner rather than later. Like I know a lot of our ones for next year are already full, so you need to be thinking almost a year ahead. And what can sometimes happen is if we've taken people on in the past where we've guaranteed them holiday work before they finish their study, so they're getting in there early, they're getting to know people. Because if you leave it too late, you might be out of luck.
Awesome. And we also have a question from Daniel in the audience. So he's left a few comments. So I'll just pop them up on the screen. So the first one's, hi, Scott and Emily. I'm an electrical and systems engineering student at UMass Amherst, I believe, in the US. I'll be graduating this December and intend to move to New Zealand at the time. And so he's basically asked, this is the first question, is it possible to be hired in New Zealand as a US citizen while still fresh out of university? And then the second one is just pretty much the same, but he's just provided a bit more context. So he's had a few successful interviews with New Zealand companies, but didn't get the job because he will need to have his visa sponsored. So Scott, do you have any advice on how he can kickstart a career in New Zealand?
Geez, I can't say I'm very experienced in the visa requirements. Might not better help you there, sorry, Daniel. But it looks like you're being proactive, which is the main thing. I just wouldn't let it keep you down. Just keep chipping away. Sorry, mate. Not sure with the visa issue. Never had to employ anybody from overseas.
One thing I would probably recommend, Daniel, is to actually contact, if you can find like the HR people on LinkedIn, contact them, potentially, put together like a short little introduction about yourself, let them know your backstory, and see if they can provide any advice through that way. I think that would probably be a good way to go. I think the HR team at all these companies would probably have the best insight into that. I think that would probably be good. Potentially, I've seen some people actually put together videos and they'll send through like a little introduction video about themselves. And that's a really good way to be really personable, because someone's seeing your face, they're seeing that you're a real person. So I definitely, or even setting up a Zoom call if you can do something like that, and just, meet some HR people who can have a better chance at helping you with something like this. But yeah, definitely keep trying, because it sounds like a really exciting move from USA to New Zealand. Sounds like fun.
It's so good having. Sorry, it's so good having different nationalities in your team. It's not so much you've sort of got the same skills, but it's just the whole blend of different cultures and different nationalities. It's quite enjoyable.
And one other thing I thought I should mention, actually, I believe on Grad New Zealand, we actually have, under the different engineering jobs, or there's actually kind of like a checklist, and it will basically say like what kind of application it says it takes. So sometimes it'll say like international applications, things like that. So that's really useful for a lot of our some international students that we have over in, I'm in Australia, so in Australia. I would say if you also reach out to like the Grad New Zealand team as well, see if there's any way that they can let you know, if the checkbox applies to your situation as well. I'm not sure if it applies, so you might have to reach out to them and ask, because if that's the case, then you can also look at the checkbox and see if the different positions we have available suit you. I know that was really helpful for some of the international people when they were applying through some of the Grad Australia sites. Okay, so I thought I should mention that. We'll go back to some questions now that I had prepared. So the other question that I wanted to ask was, do you have any tips or advice on potentially students who didn't come from an engineering background, but they want to go into engineering?
Yep. So with regards to going to do study or just joining companies without the degree or diploma, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think
So
we'll
yeah, right. So
talk about the both of them. So if they haven't studied it, but then, or potentially they so potentially they haven't studied it and they've done something else, like for example business, but they kind of want to get into engineering. Like for example, could they get in through like an admin role and then while doing that continue studying engineering on the side?
yeah, definitely. So I've only ever been at Fulton Hogan, so I'll talk to my experiences. But we've probably got a 40-60, so 60% engineers, 40% guys that have worked in the field before, and they've come into they're obviously natural born leaders, so they progress into the supervisor role, and then they come into project management roles as well. So there's lots of different ways to come in there. So you technically you don't need in contract, you don't need to have that engineer study and background. Some good experience would be too, and people can come from other areas like a builder or a structural engineer comes over and can take civil engineering quite well as well. So it just takes a little bit longer. Sometimes that's probably the other thing. It could take 5 odd years working in the field versus coming straight out of doing some studying. You sort of get to the same level, but just a different way to get your foot in the door, I suppose, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. I think nowadays with nowadays it's very common for people to study something completely different and go into, end up in a completely different career. So it's good to know that there's opportunities to move into different areas within the engineering industry. So I kind of wanted to just go through, I guess, 3 final kind of questions that I had on the interview process and application process, because I think that's really handy for graduates right now. So let's just go through those. So the ones that I wanted to ask were, I'm just checking my notes. I wanted to ask, so what are some commonly asked questions that they can expect?
Yeah, probably your one you said before is, explain to me a situation where the pressure's been on and how you've dealt with it. That's always a favourite one. And then just sort of some scenario ones where you might run them through you're running a job out there in the field and you've got issues with the residents that are around that job. You have some stakeholder issues. You've got some weather delays. Just how you systematically work through your different problems and sort of try and prioritise which ones actually affect the here and now, which ones can I park up and deal with later because they don't affect the path of the job. So just sort of a lot of scenario type ones. And most of the time, I just like a conversation just to see what the person's about. What are their hobbies? Because obviously hobbies are pretty key, I think. And in life, you've got to have a balance between work, play, and family, that sort of thing. So just getting to know that person and what makes them or the world did they grow up. So just I'm more of a general conversation person, to be honest, and chuck a few sort of scenarios and that in there. So.
Yeah, I think that it's always the best interviews when it's just a conversation. It feels really natural. It's great for the interviewer and it's great for the interviewee. So on that topic, do you have any advice for, they've been asked a question that they don't know the answer to? Is there any kind of way that you would go around that, explaining how you don't know the question's answer?
Yep. Yeah. So, and there's going to be a lot of that when you first start. There's going to be a lot of I don't know, but I suppose the key thing is admitting that, so you're not walking off sort of with somebody thinking you know what you're doing. Because if you admit you don't, I'm not sure of the answer, but I will find out, and then go and find out and then feed that back as soon as you can to whoever's asked the question. Hey, look, I found the answer. Here it is here. That's a great sign that someone's putting in the work and behind it. But from an interview perspective, yeah, if you're not sure, just that's easy, isn't it? Not, sorry, I don't know. Yeah, and if it's yeah, I don't think an interviewer would ask you a real technical question that would probably put you on the spot that much. But yeah.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned just before about, say someone asks you a question, you don't know the answer. The best thing you could do is say, I don't know that question, but I'll get back to you with an answer. And I've actually, I've heard of, HR people who have told me that sometimes an applicant hasn't known the answer, but they've actually said that they'll get back to them. And then the next day they've actually, researched the question, come up with their own idea on it and sent it back to them. And I think that's really impressive because it shows, dedication, like they're willing to better themselves as well. Like they don't know it yet, but they will come back to you with an answer. So that's always a great way to deal with those questions because there's certainly a lot of them. The other thing I thought the last question for the interview kind of process that I want to talk about is if you had any examples of, what makes a good response and what makes a bad response. So this could be things like, I guess, the way the question's answered, body language, any kind of advice you had on that?
Yeah, I think I probably mentioned eye contact early on and a lot of just being genuine, like who you are. Everyone's different, so you don't need to try and be a certain type of person. You're yourself, so stick to who you are. You don't go on too much. Sort of some people can yarn, they can just sort of get themselves sort of caught up in this big response. So, confident, crisp, clear. I think that's the style I like to hear.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're pretty much coming to the end of today's session. So I'd love to wrap it up with a final question. So my last question is, actually I have two questions, but the last one is, do you have any final advice for students or graduates who are looking to start their career in engineering? Or just any advice in general?
Oh, definitely get into it. It's such a rewarding industry to try and get involved in. There's the opportunities you get. You'll start out in one area, and you can, the civil engineering is all over the world. So it's sort of and anyone from New Zealand that works overseas has got a good name. So yeah, definitely get into it. Definitely get stuck in when you're early on in your career. Get right into wherever you may be, whether you think it's your level or not. Just get stuck in. Build the relationships that you can lean on when you become into more of a senior role. That'll benefit you in the long term. But just show, good positive attitude and get stuck in it. Get stuck in. So yeah.
Perfect. And this is my final question. Is there any open job opportunities that you want to share that Fulton Hogan has?
Yeah, so I can talk for the sort of the lower South Island. So yes, there are a few graduates for next year. There's the link there at the bottom. There's a couple in Central Otago, one in Southland, and Dunedin's got its lot for you. But go to that website there, and there's an intake, obviously each year. So I don't know the numbers throughout Fulton Hogan, but I guarantee you there's a few floating around there that are ready to be filled. There's also some anyone in the Dunedin Otago area there's a few holiday jobs coming up, so we'll look to take on 4 or 5 studying students in between their years on a bit of a first in first served basis. So yeah, get in touch with that one too. Awesome.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Scott, for today's session. It's been really great to hear your insights. So I will just wrap up. So basically, I've popped the, there's a link here Yep, just below, you can see that. Head to that link. I've also put in the comments. There's also a link to Grad New Zealand's, general page as well. If you go to the Fulton Hogan link, you can see the open job opportunities. Not only that, you can actually see a bunch of other resources we have. So we have like past videos. I think there's like blog posts, interviews. There might be a day in the life as well. We have a bunch of resources on them, so you can really get a good idea as to see what it's like to work with them and really understand and make the process really streamlined for you. So definitely go and check that out. So yeah, that was pretty much the end of today's session. For those of you who haven't signed up to Grad New Zealand, make sure you do so, create a profile, and then you can get notified of, upcoming job opportunities, webinars like these, any events we have. Sometimes we have, custom events with employers that are one-on-one and that haven't actually been announced to the public. So definitely make sure you sign up and make sure you check out our socials if you want to see more of our upcoming sessions and share it with your friends as well who are in other industries. We are constantly having things that are, for example, like we have a pharmacy one this week as well. We have nursing ones. We have tech ones. We have pretty much every single industry. So there might not be stuff for you for the next week, but there might be stuff for someone you know. So yeah, make sure you check that out and share it with your friends. And head to these links here to check out more about Fulton Hogan. So yeah, that was the end of today's session. If you guys want to watch back this video, feel free to do so. It'll be on Fulton Hogan's profile on Grad New Zealand. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Grad New Zealand as well and just contact us or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Awesome. Well, that's the end of today's session. So I'll wrap up now. Thanks so much for everyone for joining us and hope you have a good day.
Thank you.